the big thing to remember here is banks don't want real estate. They're not in the business of owning real estate. Banks are in the business of loaning money. That's what they want. They don't want to be a landlord. Yep. I don't want to be a landlord. Banks certainly don't want people calling them when the toilet is stopped up at midnight. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
So banks don't want the property. They just want money.
Welcome to the Get Traction podcast. If you are ready to learn exactly what it takes to become a real estate entrepreneur, this is the show for you. With your host, founder of Traction Real Estate Mentors and president of the Traction Real Estate Investors Association, Tom Zeeb.
Linda Locasio, how are you?
Awesome, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Welcome to the program. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for asking me. It's exciting, really.
Good, Linda. So I asked you to be on the show. You're in New Orleans. You're a real estate investor for 1 or 2 years, I think. And you do with a lot of rentals. And that's what I want to talk about today. So that's a short introduction, but give us a deeper introduction. Who is Linda Locasio?
Well, I guess from a business perspective, I'm a real estate investor. I'm also a real estate broker, which, means I have my own company. And so I've been investing in real estate probably since 2003, I believe. I used to buy rentals. And then my husband passed in 2004. And then in 2005, I discovered the New Orleans RIA. And man, did that open up a world to me. It was just amazing. I mean, I was just amazed at what all you can learn, from these RIA groups, because, prior to that, I'd be a typical real estate investor. You put 20% down and you have your little rental properties and you don't even necessarily know anything about numbers, But anyway, so since then I was the first female president of the New Orleans RIA and served for 2 or 3 years, I believe. And I'm still on the board to this day. And in the capacity of, I do the programming, schedule the speakers and such.
Gotcha. So what changed then? You said you used to put 20% down on a property, but once you got some more education and ideas, how did you start buying properties then?
Well, I mean, I went through the gamut. Of course, every speaker that came through had a different idea of how you can invest in real estate, which just exploded my mind. I had no idea. So, I started out then as maybe a typical investor beyond that, as far as flipping properties, which I love doing. I love flipping properties, just taking something that's a piece of junk and making it just beautiful and then selling it to a family who loves it and loves living in it. That is extremely satisfying. It really is. But it's also very capital intensive and it can be risky. Especially if you're in, a market like 2007 and 2008, when a lot of us got caught. So, and I still had my rentals during all that time as well. And, handling those rentals as a single female without my husband, it's not that it was difficult, but it's like they're a bunch of kids. And, they call you for every little thing. And I don't want to be somebody's maintenance person. They call me every time their toilet stopped up or their air conditioner doesn't work. I hated that. Uh-huh. I hated that.
How did you solve it?
What's that?
How did you solve that problem?
Well, how I solved it was learning how to buy real estate. Well, learning how I wound up selling all of those rentals because they were all duplexes. And I bought single family homes. I bought them subject to the existing mortgage. And I did all lease options. That's all I do now, lease options. Okay. It's just, so much better than a typical rental.
So for people that may not be familiar with the ins and the outs of lease options, give us an overview.
Okay.
And why are they so much better?
Oh, well, number one, let me preface it by saying that if you do a lease option on the house, you have to be prepared to sell it if the lease option buyer exercises their option to buy. Okay. So it's not like a rental in that, you don't have all the control over when necessarily you're going to sell it. But that being said, most lease option deals don't work out. I think the percentages are in the high 80% as to that most lease option buyers do not exercise their option to buy. And so therefore they either move on or they stay on if you allow them to. And, and there's some advantages to that. But go ahead.
The lease option buyer, so people understand, is instead of a tenant, which is just renting your property, you're putting in a tenant who also has the right to exercise an option to buy your property. So they're a tenant.
Correct.
And so theoretically, the intention is that your tenant will buy the property from you.
Right.
And you're just saying it just doesn't always happen, but at least they have the mentality that they plan on doing it.
And what's so great about that is that mentality that they have, they put down a substantial down payment, which is an option fee. It's not a deposit.
Yep.
So we'll get into that, but that's an option fee, which is non-refundable. But they have that mentality that they're buying the house. And again, most of them don't. But because they don't have the tenant mentality is, well, it's not my place. I don't really care. I don't have to clean the bathtub ever. I don't know if you've ever seen black bathtubs, but they exist in tenant properties. But anyway, the idea is they're buying the place, so they're going to keep it up. And they do. They keep it in good condition. Additionally, they take care of all maintenance, repairs, all that kind of stuff because they're buying the property. Right. So it's that mentality that I love, that they don't call me every time something goes wrong. That's amazing. But there are also other things that are great about the lease option, which, again, the option fee, depending on the property and depending on what you get down, but minimally you can get down $5,000. So let's say a house you would normally I know rent's so much higher, but let's say you could rent it for $1,000. You'll get $1,000 deposit, which a deposit by itself is potentially refundable. Whereas this option fee of, say, $5,000 in this instance is not refundable. Okay. It's applicable to their purchase if they buy, but if they don't buy, they break their contract and they leave the $5,000 on the table or whatever the amount is. So that's another thing that's just amazing about, lease options. And, when these people move on, they move on. Now, I've got some lease option buyers that have stayed on for several years, and, you can charge them another option fee the following year or not. You can do whatever you want to do. But look, for me, as long as they're taking care of all their maintenance and repairs and don't call me for anything, I'm happy.
You're happy. So you're selling these to, what's called tenant buyers.
Yes.
Who might potentially buy the property. Are you buying them? Do you own these properties? Or are you also doing the same with the owner? Are you a master tenant buyer that's then subletting?
I am not. I buy these properties. Typically, I buy them subject to the existing mortgage. And, what that means for those who don't know is just that when a typical buyer buys a property, they get, say, title to the property and they get the mortgage. And it's two different things. Well, let's just say it this way. The bank does not own your property. The bank basically has a lien against your property. So you own it outright, at least here in Louisiana. Now, Tom, you can talk about the nation. I only know about Louisiana.
Are you saying Louisiana is different than every other state, Linda?
A little bit, just a little bit. But here, you own your property outright. When you go to the active sale as a typical buyer, we don't get something that says it's a title. It says cash sale. Because even though you've got a mortgage, you took out a $200,000 mortgage again to be able to buy the property, still the way things are here, you're paying cash for all property here. It's a cash sale. So that's your title. But anyway, the point of that is only that you own your property outright. All the bank has is a lien against it.
That's the way in most places. They just the legal terminology might be a little different, but it's you own the property, you have the title. The bank has a mortgage against a lien, which is a very powerful lien that basically isn't going to get wiped out unless it's paid off.
Right. And so what happens so you can take your property then and sell it without paying off that mortgage. And that's what I do. I mean, and you have to know how to do it.
Yep.
And so there is a technique. It's not something that everybody can just run out and do unless they know what they're doing. But anyway, I take title to the property and I use their mortgage. I just pay their mortgage each month. It's like an assumable mortgage of sorts. It's not exactly an assumable, but it's the same concept.
It's not technically assumable, but you're buying the property and the deed comes into your name. So you own it. But Correct. You haven't paid off the lien, the mortgage. That's still sitting there. You effectively take their payment book and pay. Not that anyone's using payment books anymore, but you know what I mean. Electronic. you make sure the electronic payment book is done. And now, wait a minute. I know there's going to be some people are listening going, oh, wait a minute. I know a little something about this. Isn't there a due on sale clause? Don't you have to pay off the mortgage when you sell the property?
Well, there is a due on sale clause, and certainly in today's mortgages. And no, you don't. That just means that the bank has the right to call the loan due. And it doesn't mean that they will or they have to at all. And there are techniques too you can use to mitigate or minimize that. But overall, no, the big thing to remember here is banks don't want real estate. They're not in the business of owning real estate. Banks are in the business of loaning money. That's what they want. They don't want to be a landlord.
Yep.
I don't want to be a landlord, So banks certainly don't want people calling them when the toilet is stopped up at midnight. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So no, banks don't want the property. They just want money. They want to loan money and make money on money.
It's a contract issue, this due on sale clause, that if they want to, they can call it due because transfer the property, but they're not obligated to do it. And it's not like, and you're not breaking a law. It's a contract stipulation that lets them, if they want to. If they want to. But why on earth would they call a performing note due? Because that would be crazy.
Exactly.
Problems to deal with. Why make more?
Right. That's exactly right. So yeah, I mean, you're right on point there. I had something I was going to say, but it escaped me. But yeah, they are not going to call it. I don't want to say they're not going to call it due. Loans have been called due. But look, as long as you're paying, that's the thing that they're most interested in.
But you always make sure you pay it. So you are taking over these properties, leaving the existing mortgage in place. What do you normally pay to get a property then? Are you paying the person to buy it? Are you buying out their equity? How does the buy side work for you?
Okay, so it just depends. Typically, I don't pay anything. But look, if they've got a whole boatload of equity and they need, $5,000, $2,000, whatever dollars to move, and that's going to be the deal breaker for me, well, I'll pay it. But typically, I don't pay anything. It's because it's typically somebody who's in a situation where they need to, to move and move quickly. So yeah, usually I don't pay, but sometimes it's not even. It's really funny. Not all the time is anybody in a bad situation. Sometimes they just want the convenience of somebody that can take their property, and they're able to move on with their life. But anyway, it just depends on how much equity they have and how much equity they want from me. But it's all about numbers. All of real estate investing is about numbers. It's just numbers. And you have to know your numbers. So, if they've got $100,000 worth of equity and they want, $10,000, well, heck, that's a lot better than even putting 20% down on any investment property. So, maybe I'll give them a few bucks. You don't have to give them any money, but each deal is different as to what you do.
Okay. So you have the property, you've got it under control, you're leaving the old mortgage in place. Over time, that property is appreciating. So you're the one gaining that value.
Correct.
Right, during the eventual resale. And how do you set up a resale price with the buyer? Is that determined when they first move in, or is that determined when they decide to raise their hand and say, yeah, I want out, I want to sell, or I want to buy?
Okay, well, let's start out. Typically, I'll do a 1-year lease option agreement. So they've got 1 year to, buy the house or not. Or, that's when our contract ends. But it's, again, this is contract, so it's up to you how you want to set it up. If you want to set up a price in the beginning and say, all right, I'll sell you the house for, $200,000, or if you want it to be the appraised value. If you think that we're in a highly appreciating market, if you're, in an area, say like Phoenix or someplace where, in a year from now, you could have another $30,000, $40,000 or more in appreciation. Well, you might want to put in there that whatever the appraised value is at the time. But if you're in a market like mine, where we don't have high appreciating, we appreciate, but not quickly, like in some of those, not off the charts. Then I'll usually put a price. Now, the way I do it is, it depends on how much they put down. Everything's about numbers, So, because don't forget the amount of money that they put down, you're applying that to the purchase. Yeah. And also know that these people don't care about the purchase price. They don't care about that. They don't care about the purchase price. What they care about is monthly payment. And that's what most people care about, is the monthly payment. So it doesn't matter for the most part. The only thing that matters is that when the sale comes around, is when the appraiser man comes knocking at the door, he really determines what the sales price is going to do. So if you've overpriced it, say for your buyer, you can always come down or apply those funds, those extra funds, to their closing cost, or whatever you want to do. But so typically, though, I do predetermine a price, and again, it all depends on how much they put down, what I think the property is worth, what I think it'll be worth in a year from now, and those types of things is how I determine, what the price is going to be.
So your profit centers, Linda, are, I'm counting 3 of them. Up front, you're getting a payment, $5,000 or more, whatever it happens to be, for the tenant to move in. The tenant buyer to move in, you're getting paid. Then there must be a spread every month between what they're paying you for rent and what you owe on the mortgage that you've taken over subject to.
Absolutely.
So making the difference. And then there's a third payout at the end if the tenant buyer decides to actually buy, there's a difference between what you originally bought it for and what you're now selling it for. So you're making another spread. Are those
bingo? You got it. How you like that? 3 profit centers, and I didn't pay anything for the property.
3 profit centers. You didn't pay much for the property or anything. You're not doing any maintenance or toilets or clogged sinks or other nonsense because the tenant is acting like they own it because they're anticipating owning it someday.
And if they leave it in great condition. Many times better than it was because they painted and they've done, because anticipate day. But they live in better condition than it was when I sold it to them on a lease option. And remember, all a lease option is, it's just a rental with the option to buy. But it is because of that option to buy, all these other things like they're responsible for maintenance and repairs and such, that makes it so sweet.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful setup. And you find you basically describe the same type of motivated sellers, or the motivation behind sellers, that most real estate investors are looking for. So
that's exactly right.
But you have a little more flexibility in terms of, you don't need a ton of equity, do you?
No, you don't need it. It depends. I typically, what I invest for is the spread, the monthly spread. Okay. So that's what I look for. It's not so much the purchase price. I just want to know what the note is and what I can, lease option it for, how much spread I can make each month. Now, of course, the more equity, the better. But we are in an appreciating market at the moment. So, that's always nice when, at the end, when you get a big payday. And most of these do have equity, but they don't have to. But if they didn't have equity when I bought it, they're going to have equity in the end.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So of those 3 profit centers, you really care about that middle one, the difference between what you owe and how much you make, which is the classic landlord one.
Well, there you go.
And the other ones are beautiful icing on the cake.
Beautiful icing on the cake. Man, when you get that nice big paycheck when you sell it, that's very cool. But that's not what I invest for because, the market, just as markets go up, markets can come down. So if I'm investing for the equity and then I lose that equity because the market comes down, well, then I haven't done anything. So if I invest for that monthly spread, then I'm definitely going to make that money. And then, of course, there's an option fee I make up front as well.
Right. You still have the first profit center. That's totally
right.
Awesome. How many, you said many people do not actually wind up exercising their option to buy, many tenant buyers. So
amazing.
Kind of, it doesn't have to be exact, but what percentage?
Well, I think it's in the 80s is the official percentage, but I usually go through 3 or 4 tenant buyers before one actually exercises their option to buy.
Is it 80% do or do not actually buy?
Do not.
Do not. Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
They give you the money down, they take care of the property, they fix it up, and then they flake out and move on?
That's correct. And then, now again, at that end, you have, at the end of that 1-year agreement, you have different options that you can do. You can either charge, if they want to say, let's say they're people buy lease option properties for many reasons, but let's say that it's a small business owner and they need to have 2 years of tax returns for their business that shows a profit before they're able to secure a mortgage. Because that's what the mortgage company has to have. So they can't get a mortgage and buy that property until they've had 2 years of positive tax returns. So they may need another year. If they need another year, well, they can, because remember that first year contract, once it's over, it's over.
Yeah,
it's finished. So they can put down, though, if they still want the property, they can put down another option fee, another however much money. And look, it's your contract. You can do anything you want. If there's a lot, you can change anything in there. If there's a lot of equity in it, you could apply their first option fee as well as their new one to it. It's your contract. You can make it any way you want, but it depends on your equity, the sales price and, just so many different things. But for ease here.
Whatever two parties will agree to, you can make a contract for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So you can do anything you want. But typically, you can collect another option fee and then, give them another year on the property. Or you can just as long as they're paying each month and they're taking care of the place, you can just let it continue going because they're in that mentality that they're going to buy the place and they're still going to take care of it. And they're still not going to call me at midnight about the toilet, you know?
Gotcha. It's a beautiful thing. Walk me through some typical numbers, just an average property. How much are you buying it for? And then all the numbers, and then what do you wind up renting it out on a rent to own basis?
Well, I usually, every property is different as to, I'm looking at my files here, trying to think of, I can pull anyone, they're all different, but most of the ones that I buy are what I call bread and butter properties. I don't want anything that's real high priced, and I don't do the slums, and look, there's money in both of those.
Yes.
But for me, I do bread and butter properties. So I typically will buy something, say between 150 is a little low these days, but let's just say between 150 and 250, somewhere up in there is where I like to say, maybe even up to 300. But I like to stay because there's a broader base of buyers in that sweet spot here in our market. So more people can afford a house between, say, 150 and 300. More people can afford a property there than can afford $500,000 or more.
Yep.
So I want to be where I have the most potential to sell it on a lease option or, to someone. So that's typically where I stay. And I like to have, if I can, get about $500 a month spread. In today's market, that's pretty easy to do. But I have taken, a $200 or $300 a month spread long ago. That doesn't work anymore. Yeah, there's the spreads are usually more than that now. But I have taken a $200 a month spread. If it doesn't cost me anything, and I'm making $200 a month, 200, it's 200, $2,400 is the end of the year, that I didn't have before. So, but don't forget that when you buy it, even though I buy it for nothing, I'm still probably going to have to make that first month's payment before I'm able to get a lease option buyer in there, depending on the time of the month that I buy it and what, payments they've made and so forth. Sometimes my sellers will even make that month's payment, it's, they're all different but a lot of fun too. It's fun to see what people will do and it's amazing. But anyway, so, $200 a month is only $2,400 at the end of the year, the first year. And if I've got to make 1 month's payment, I don't know, say that's $1,200 or whatever it is, that's half of my profit. I've got to wait half the year to get that back. Of course, once I put that lease option buyer in, I get that option fee and the first month's rent, which there is another profit center in there that we didn't talk about that I forgot to tell you about. Well, is that I usually get higher than market rent rather. So say market rent's $1,200. I can usually charge $1,400, $1,350, $1,400, maybe even a little bit more than that for their monthly payment because I give them what's called monthly rent credits. So anyway, I give them monthly rent credits. And what I tell them is, all right, so let's say market rent's $1,200, but I'm able to charge them $1,400. And I give them $200 a month and I apply that to their purchase at the end of the year as well. So, but what I tell them, that is for them taking care of all maintenance and repairs. Gotcha. That's a trade-off, you see. Okay. And so now I add that to the price of my house. So say the house is worth $200,000, they gave me $10,000 down, and I'm giving them $200 a month in monthly rent credits. That's $10,000 plus $4,800. Let's just call it $5,000. So I'm raising the price of my house by $5,000. Is that right? No, $2,400.
$2,400. Anyway. Right? $200 a month. $2,400. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm raising the price of my house by the $10,000 and the $2,400. So I'm going to raise it by, I'm going to charge them an additional maybe $13,000 to $15,000. Again, they don't really care about the price of the house. That's not and the only thing that I have to look out for is when the appraiser comes. When they go to get their mortgage company will send out an appraiser because the mortgage company wants to protect their investment and they want to make sure it really is worth whatever it is that I'm selling it for. Boy, today that's not an issue, but you can sell for almost anything today. Right. But anyway, the appraiser comes out and then it reports back to the bank how much the property is worth.
Okay. And then at that point, you're able to sell it to them, and the rent credits, that the down payment plus the rent, the amount that you've credited every month, that basically effectively becomes the ultimate end buyer's down payment.
Well, yes, the option fee is definitely their down payment, but the rent credits, again, I just add all this to the price of the house. So
you're compensating for it, even though, I mean, they're building it up like a deposit, but you're not losing anything anyway because you're compensating by pushing the price up equally.
You say it so succinctly, Tom.
Making sure I understand it, Linda.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
You'll understand it perfectly.
Interesting. So and fantastic. So it's just profit center.
It's all profit centers everywhere. And I love it. Again, being a single gal, it's so much easier for me to deal with things like this than to deal with just regular rental tenants. They're like dealing with children. Been there, done that. Had my kids. don't want to deal with it anymore. So
they're out of the house. Keep them out.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. Being a single gal, what's it like as a single gal being an investor? I know this is probably one of the reasons you like this technique so much. But what was it like? What's it like out there?
Well, I mean, it's no different than any other investor. It's, I'm a pretty independent kind of girl, but it's no different. It's just trying to find the right strategy for me. And this works for me because, again, I don't want to keep going out there and being bothered by all these people and, all this stuff. So that's why the lease option works so well for me. But it's no different being a single gal. You don't take your husband or your wife out with you. I'm sure you don't take your wife out with you when you're looking at property. So it really doesn't make any difference. It's no different. It's just, just my life.
I totally get it. I agree with you. It's just amazing how many people think that, that they're in a different group or different category. Everything ought to be different. We're investors first and foremost.
Right. I mean, it's really no different. But like I said, because I guess you could call me a lazy investor or one that just doesn't want to be bothered. That's why I picked this strategy.
You found a strategy that fits your personality type. That's what's more important. I mean, that's one of the reasons I focus so much on wholesaling, because I know long-term I'm going to tune out. I'm going to kind of ADD sets in and I start to lose interest in the project. So I got to be careful. I better be done in 30 to 60 days. Because if you tell me I got a year, I might not be able to stay focused long enough.
Okay. I got you. Well, yeah. And look, and that's another thing, me from my age, I'm 64. So I certainly don't want to be out there, taking care of all this stuff. I want it easy in my life. If I were a young man and I've got two, I say young sons, one's going to be, one's almost 40. My oldest is almost 40. But anyway, if I were, and they've got properties, but if I were a young man, I wouldn't mind going out there doing things that need to be done, unstopping toilets or tubs or whatever. But I don't want to do that. I mean, I just don't want to. And, especially at my age, I don't want to be out there doing those types of things, So, that has something to do with it as well.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So, Linda, for people that are listening going, wow, that is exactly what I need. I totally relate with Linda. That's me. How do you get started in lease options? Is it any different than any other sort of investing?
Lease options? No. I mean, it's a great, lease options is a great way to invest. You can buy on a lease option, as you alluded to in the beginning, and you can sell on a lease option.
You can sell on a lease option. Yeah, I like what you do. I'd rather take it over subject to, that way you actually own it. I think it's unstable to not do it. I know, there's two things that my attorneys don't like buying on a lease. They don't like sandwiching yourself in. But to do that, to go get subject twos and sell them on a lease with an option to buy, that's what you do. Is it difficult? Is there anything different?
It's no different than it's no different than any other type of investing. All this, what it all comes down to is marketing. If you know how to market, you can sell or buy anything or whatever the case is. And you just have to continually market. If you're on the market for properties, then you need to market for them. It's just that simple. Everything's about marketing. Who is it that does what I tell people all the time, who is it that does the marketing during the Super Bowl? The most expensive commercials at all. Budweiser? Coca-Cola?
Oh, yeah. It's all the big companies. It's all the names you expect. Yeah.
Now, why do you think that they're paying all this money, the most expensive commercials during the Super Bowl? Why would they pay that? I mean, don't you know who Coca-Cola is and Budweiser? And the reason is because if they quit marketing, people will forget who they are. Yeah. So Budweiser will no longer be on top. Then it's going to be, I don't know, Miller Lite or whatever, whoever else is there. And Coca-Cola won't be on top. It'll be Pepsi Cola or vice versa, whatever, So that's why these big companies continue to market. And even though everybody in the United States knows who these companies are, they continue to market. And you need to do the same thing. That's what I tell people. You need to do the exact same thing. I mean, of course, you can't afford a Super Bowl commercial, but you can continue to do your marketing, and you should, because if you don't, people won't know who you are and they'll forget about you.
Exactly. You can afford letters and postcards. It's a lot cheaper than Super Bowl commercials.
And then, use what you've got, when you're buying, subject to one of the things that the sellers sometimes will ask, they'll ask, well, how do I know you're going to make that monthly payment? Because after all, this loan is still in my name. And, one of the things that I use is my credibility, and everybody's got to use what they have, but because I'm a real estate broker. So, tell them, look, I could lose my license if I, do something that is illegal or wrong or whatever. Mm-hmm. Additionally, I'm an investor and I'm well capitalized, and I'm going to put money into this property. I'm using this property to make money. Why would I ever not make the payment? If I don't make the payment, it's going back to the bank. So this was all for naught. So it doesn't make any sense for me to buy a property and not make the payment. But that is one thing I want to tell people, is that if you are going to buy a property subject to, make sure that you do have a couple of bucks behind you. I'm not saying you have to have $1 million, but you're going to, at least have a couple of months that if you're without a tenant buyer, or even a tenant for that matter, make sure that you're able to make that payment, because that is what you have promised the person that you bought from, the seller that you purchased it from. And that's important. It's very important to me that I make it on time, and not just set it up in my bank account where these payments come out automatically.
It's automatic. You don't have to remember to send in a check every month.
Right. And I don't go collecting checks from my tenant buyers either. Another thing I do is I set them up with a bank account. It's my bank account in my name, but I set it up for them. Sometimes I'll have 2 tenant buyers on the same bank account, but I give them the account number. They put their money in, they go to the bank, put it in each month, and then I withdraw the money out each month. And I just leave just enough money, a couple of bucks in there to keep the account alive. But what I tell them is that, when they go to get their mortgage at the end of the year, if they do, well, it's not me saying they paid on time. It's not them saying they paid on time. It's documented by, an uninterested third party, which is the bank. So it's shown right there when they made their payment. So, and look, and I can set it up at their bank account, whatever is their bank whatever bank is most convenient to them. Maybe there's a bank near where they work, where they like to do their banking, or maybe there's one near their home. I don't know. I don't care. I'll set up an account there. It's really easy.
Just an account. That way you get paid, and they get the benefit of it as well.
And they can do their banking whatever way they want to. Some people do a lot of online banking. Some people, with the young people with their phones, they bank with their phones, and other people physically go over to the bank and do it there. So whatever floats their boat, doesn't matter to me, and I let them pick the bank. It's my account. I go open it up in my name or my entity's name. Yeah. And the only thing that they're allowed to do is put money into the account.
They can't take out.
What's that? Right. They cannot take out. Right. Primarily because it's in the name of my entity. I mean, they're not allowed, they can't cash any checks or do anything. So again, I watch for it when they put the money in. I just go online and draw the money out, send it to a different account. Yeah, pretty easy. And that way I don't have to chase checks either. So, and then they know I know what's going on. And they can't say the check's in the mail.
Gotcha. Because it's either in the bank or it's not. No nonsense.
Right. But they're motivated to put it in the bank and to pay on time, because I tell them this is how, and it may not be exactly true, but this is one of the things that the bank looks at to see if you are making your payments on time. I don't think the bank really looks at it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's there if they do, if the bank wants to see if they've made their monthly payments on time. Because banks used to send out letters to the landlords, have they made their payments on time each month and stuff, but I don't think they really do that anymore.
Oh, they can look if they want.
Yeah.
If the underwriter is interested, they can look.
That's exactly right. But that motivates, though, my tenant buyer to pay on time.
Yeah.
And so, because like I said, it's there, it's documented. And additionally, they lose their monthly rent credits for any month that they don't pay on time. Then they lose that month's rent credits. So you remember how I give them a couple of bucks a month
Yeah.
I raise the monthly rent up a couple if they don't pay on time. So that $200 a month, if they don't pay, not only are they charged a late fee if they're not, paid on the 5th, but they also lose that month's rent credit. So there's lots of reasons. They're very motivated to pay on time. And I'm very clear about things when I set this up with them and they agree to it all.
Yeah.
I said, if you don't pay on time, not only are you losing, a late fee, you're losing your monthly rent credit. And the tenant buyers are very motivated to pay on time because I give them lots of incentives. I give them lots of carrots to pay on time. So that's, one of the little tricks of the trades and, something, you would consider doing if you're going to do a lease option. Yeah. Give them lots of incentives to pay on time because I don't like late payers,
I'm totally with you on that. I don't like late payers. And now, just to clarify that, if they don't pay on time in a given month, do they only lose that month's rent credit or do you wipe out all the previous ones? I wasn't clear.
Again, it's your contract. You can do what you want. And I've done it both ways, but I want to keep them on the hook. Yeah. So that's why I don't wipe out the entire option fee or anything, which I've done before, but I've just found that's not the best practice for me anyway. I want to keep them with an incentive because if they miss 1 month early on in the contract and it wipes everything out, all their gains and all the carrots are gone for the rest of the year. So I do it on a month-by-month basis. Yeah. So, but again, it's your contract. You can do it whatever way you want. I used to do that. I'd say no more rent credits or your option fee. You've broken your contract. That means your option fee is no longer applicable to the purchase. But, I found it disincentivizes them sometimes. Okay. So,
which is, I guess, in some ways, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but it's, if 80% of them are not buying the property in it anyway, then it literally was a carrot on a stick and they lose interest in the carrot.
But right. I want them to continue to take care of the place and not think that, well, it's just a rental now because I've lost all of these incentives. So I don't care. I want them to care. And so, that's why I do it that way.
Yeah, totally get it. I think this is interesting, I'm sure people are going to ask, well, why would anyone do that? Why would they rent a property for all the time, think they're going to buy it, put money into it, fix it up, and then never buy it? But that happens all the time. But what have you seen why they don't do it? It's the same reason why people always rent. Some people just never buy. But I think we need to hear it from you.
Well, that's it. How do they say the zebra never changes its stripes or something like that? So if their issue, depending on what their issue is. If their issue is credit because they've got bad credit, they're always excited in the beginning. Oh, yes, I'm going to work on my credit. I'm going to well, they never do. They don't. And I used to really work to try and help them with their credit. Refer them to either a mortgage lender, which would help if they're not too busy. They'll tell them, what they need to do, what things they need to pay off. And this doesn't cost them anything, but it would, a mortgage broker doesn't charge them anything to do that, to, run their credit and see what issues they need to resolve, but they never did it. Or I would, refer them to a credit repair agency that would help them repair, but they just don't. They just don't. So again, it depends on what their issue is. If they're a small business owner, and again, as I said earlier, they need 2 years of positive income tax returns. Well, they might go through with it, but they just have all sorts of excuses. It's hard to get in their heads as to why they would do it, but they do it all the time. And maybe they just think that they're going to do what in the beginning, they're excited, I think, and they just feel like, I guess it's like going to the gym. I'm going to go to the gym and lose that 10 pounds or whatever it is. Yep. I'm going to join a gym and I'm going to go every day. I think it's the same thing. Yeah. In the beginning, they're excited, but over time, they just go back to their old habits.
Yep. I think that totally makes sense. Now, Linda, there are, if we simplify it, there's 3 types of investors: beginner, intermediate, advanced.
Yes.
For the levels that they're at. And there tend to be walls in between those. A beginner comes up, but then hits a wall. But if they push through, they're advanced. But eventually, they'll hit a wall before they're, for every level. So beginner, intermediate, advanced. What advice do you have for investors in general and investors at each one of those 3 levels?
I can give you some good advice. I think it's fear that holds people back from breaking that wall. So what I do coach a few people occasionally. And what I tell them is go out and know that you're going to get 10 no's. today or tomorrow or next, or however long it takes you. No, just go out there because you want to get your 10 no's. I mean, that's what you're going out there to give me my nose. And I mean, it makes you fearless because you're going in, yes, I'm going to get my nose. I'm going to bring Linda back my 10 no's. And that's what you do. I mean, go find your nose. And then you got your 10. I'm like, okay, great. Go get another 10 because eventually you're going to get a yes. But that's it. But if you're going in saying, oh, please, will you sell me your house? You know, I mean, why would somebody sell me their house for nothing? I don't understand it. No. That's the wrong mindset. Go get your nose. Get them out the way. And
I'm a broken record saying that with my students to the point where, but I'm serious. Everyone thinks it's a little odd, but no, you've got to be perversely addicted to being told no, because the more no's, the closer you are to the yes.
Absolutely. But I mean, if you're excited, if that's your mission to go out and get your nose, then that's, and then when somebody says, yeah, well, you got to be prepared because somebody will say yes.
You're going to be shocked.
But don't be too shocked. But anyway, I mean, we go over all sorts of things, that you can, say to people and all that. But it's just another tool in your toolbox, as they say. It's another strategy to learn because a lot of times when you've got your marketing machine going and you're going out and you're talking to these people, and if it's not, say, if you're into flipping or if you're, whatever your strategy is that you're doing, if it doesn't match up with your strategy, you don't know what to do with it and it just goes away. You wasted that lead. So if you can potentially wholesale it or rent it or lease option it or, flip it or, sell the note or do whatever. I mean, just there's so many different strategies that you can do with real estate. It's just those are all the different tools that you can use. And so you need to learn your tools. But the one thing that I tell people is that take a strategy and learn it. One strategy. When I first started doing this, my mind, as I said, was just blown. It was like, pow, pow. Tom Zeeb says wholesale. Pow. This, Robin Thompson says flip houses. Pow. This person, like so many. I mean, because it's amazing. It truly is amazing. All these things that you can. It's almost unlimited things you can do with real estate, investing strategies that you can use. So, but take one strategy and learn it. Focus on one strategy. Don't get caught up in trying to do a million different strategies. Learn your strategy, put it in your toolbox. Now you know it, you understand it, you've done it once, twice, 3 or 4 times. So now it's in your toolbox. Now go for a different strategy and learn that one. Go for your nose. Go find your nose out there. Get those out the way because the yes is somewhere over there, but go get your nose. That's what I sent them out for, to look for your nose.
I think that is... because you said that at the beginning, as soon as you start learning things, there was so much learning, it was different and it's exciting. It's like being in you're the classic kid in a candy store. There's all these, but if you try to eat them all, you'll get a stomach ache.
Amen.
So find something you like and focus on that. And I think that's actually good news for people. I tell people when they come to our Traction Real meetings, just look, we're going to cross train. You're going to learn a lot of different things. Some things you're going to say, that's totally awesome. I could see myself doing that. Well, great. Follow that and learn more. Other months, you're going to go, that was interesting, but I could never see myself doing that. You should be happy because now you know what road not to go down. Because
that's true.
There's things you like, there's things you don't, and find that. So you're basically saying, Linda, match it to your personality type and what you like.
And I learned it and did it. I mean, just go out and do it. The first time I did it, I'm not going to lie, I was scared. And I mean, I was afraid. And the girl asked me for references, or she'd asked me if I've ever done it before. And I said, oh, yeah, I'm with a bunch of investors that do it all the time. So it wasn't exactly a lie, but it was kind of sort of, it wasn't exactly the whole truth. And I don't know. I don't remember if she asked for references or not, but she did ask that question and I kind of fudged it and she bit and I went with it. So, but I was scared the first time. I was scared the first time it happened. And so, but now it's easy. Once you do it, every time you do it, one more time, it gets even easier. And it's like nothing now, I just throw it out there to people. It's very soft shoe. Look, if it doesn't work out for them, I said, look, I can take over. You can walk away today. I can take over your property. I can just take over the mortgage payment. And you can walk away. It's real easy if you'd like to. No, it's no big deal. And that's another thing in real estate investing. I know we're at the end here, but you have to be able to walk away. If somebody says no or whatever, you have to be, I don't want to say the least interested, but you can't be afraid if they say no. You just have to be able to walk away. Okay, there's another one right around the corner. Another no or another yes.
I think people have a hard time with that. There's a desperation. I have to do a deal. I want to do a deal. I got to do my next deal, my first deal, my third deal, whatever. And then it shows. And that desperation chases away the seller.
Yes. And that's why if they go in with no expectation, expecting a no, that I'm not really expecting a no, but going to say, okay, well, they're probably all going to say no. So that's cool. It takes that pressure off of them. They're relaxed because they're just going to get a no. And that's no big deal. It's no big deal to get a no, right?
It's just a no, you'll move on.
Yeah. So it takes that fear out of the investing and learn the different strategies so that you know what to do with them. And look, if you don't want to deal with a deal, but it's a deal, wholesale.
Sell it.
Sell it to somebody who does know or enjoy doing that. If say you don't have the money to do a flip, and this one really needs to be flipped, yep. And you don't have the mean, or you don't know anybody who has money, or you can't borrow the money, whatever the case is, you just don't want to fool with flips, wholesale the deal. It's pretty simple, but if you learn these strategies and what they are, maybe they're not something that you'll want to do on a regular basis, but if you know who to wholesale them to, then wholesaling should always be part of your strategy, because if you've got your marketing machine going, there's going to be deals that you don't want to fool with because they don't fit, like you said, your personality or what you like to do. So wholesale to somebody who does like to do that.
I don't fit your criteria, but surely someone else whose criteria it does fit, because a good deal is a good deal. It just may not be the right deal for you right now.
Right. And you know what? I give a lot of deals away to people too, because I've got friends and you know what? They send me stuff too. So we do a lot of that too. And that's what's the great thing about these RIA meetings is you are socializing, if you will, with all these other real estate investors who, God, I love nothing more than to talk shop with all these people. It's just, that's my deal. I love talking shop.
Yeah,
real
it's
estate
awesome.
shop. But, and you exchange ideas all the time. And like I said, if this, deal may be in their neck of the woods, it's closer to them. I don't try and do too many deals that are more than an hour away from me, because I don't, again, I'm a lazy real estate investor. I'm not, and guess what? There are deals in everybody's backyard. You don't have to go far to find them. And I hear that a lot too. Oh, well, there's probably deals over here, but way over there. I'm like, why would you go way over there? Market right here. They got plenty of deals here.
Well, expand that point, Linda, because I hear that all the time too. The deals are always somewhere else. The grass is always greener over there in that town, on that side of the fence, on that side of the state line. It's almost like they don't want to look. They don't want to get their nose in their local area because maybe it's easier to say, well, I'm just not where it is. So I agree. You agree. Just the deals are where you are, wherever you are.
They are. Because there are distress. You know what? All this is about people and their problems. At least for me, what my strategy is, we're just dealing with people with problems. And I look at myself as a problem solver. This person has a problem, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be a financial problem. Like on one house I bought, the girl, she just wanted to follow her boyfriend to Houston. He took a job in Houston and she wanted to be with him and she didn't want to be bothered with the house. So I picked it up subject to, real easy, So she just wanted to be done. That was her problem. So it doesn't have to be financial. It can be all sorts of problems, but, it could be divorce. It could be health problems. It could just a myriad of problems. And that's all you're doing is you're solving you're an easy solve for people, at least for subject to. It's easy for them to walk away.
That's beautiful that way. Now that's so many, I think there's good advice there for all levels. What about intermediate and advanced? What do you do as you've grown as an investor? How do you bust through those ceilings, those walls you hit on the way up?
I don't know it exactly. I wouldn't think it would be necessarily so hard, except, one of the things that I think, at least for me, is at what point am I satisfied? Do I need or want, more properties? And I think that's one of the things I deal with. Struggle with, if you will, do I really need more properties? I've got, plenty enough money coming in. I'm not a young girl. I'm not as motivated as I used to be. That's true. When I was young and hungry, and I could have amassed 1 million properties, but not as much anymore. So I don't know what, to really get up to that higher level of, I mean, I'm certainly an advanced investor, but that is one of the things. What point do I say enough is enough? I mean, what's your advice on that?
It's interesting. I think if we expand what you just said, is what is right for you and when is enough? Because I think some people just want to judge it by the numbers. I need to have 1,000 properties or 500 properties or 100. But does that really matter? I think at the end of the day, you need to look at what is your personal goal? What is it that you are after and the lifestyle that you want to have? And then you just work backwards from that goal. If that means 10 properties, that's okay. If that's 8 properties, that's okay. If it's 500 properties, well, I guess that's okay for you, but good luck. And then you're going to have a headache. That sounds like a job to me when people get to that level. So
I agree.
I think what's interesting as the advanced investor is sometimes also understanding it's okay. And it doesn't need to be a purely ego-driven drive to have more and more properties, because a lot of times, honestly, Linda, all I've seen is people have more and more headache because they're chasing that number rather than chasing the result, that the reason they're in it to begin with. And I think people lose the reason why sometimes in the rush to let their ego brag.
Well, then there you go. I mean, that is it. I mean, I told you I'm a bit of a lazy investor. I don't want an easy life.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. It's lazy, not lazy. I mean, you're saying lazy, but and yet you're willing to go and put up with the nose. It's just, you don't want to be a hyperactive investor. You don't want to have to go fix toilets. You don't need your phone ringing all the time.
Oh, no. I don't want anything.
Yeah. You want your life.
I value my freedom more than being tied to all these properties all the time. And, but I think society and even real estate investors, we get into, society, I guess, kind of says that the more you have, the better. But the more you have, the more you have to be accountable for and take care of. And I'm like, I don't know that I want more. At some point, all of my life needs are taken care of. And my, for the most part, my desires. Now, look, I don't have $1 million yacht, but I don't want $1 million yacht. That's one more thing I got to take care of.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It is. I don't want all of that. But, travel, I enjoy traveling. I want to be able to buy what I want to buy, when I want to buy it. And I'm comfortable there. And that's where I'm at. So, yeah, and I do what I do when I want to do it. I don't feel like I have to constantly look for properties. When I want to, I do. That's just where I'm at,
I ask students at my implementation bootcamp to identify with one or two things. They said, would you rather have 100 pennies or 4 quarters? Because when you start thinking about it, they go, well, Tom, the value is the same. Like, well, the value is the same of 100 pennies and 4 quarters, except to me, it's very different. 4 quarters is a lot easier to manage than a pocket full of copper.
Bingo.
So what are you after? Are you after the value? Are you going to brag that you got 100 or something? I'd rather brag that I got 4 of something that's worth the same amount.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's how I feel about things. I don't want all those problems. More you have, more problems you're going to have.
There we go.
So anyway, I think
you got a great setup, Linda.
Awesome. I do too. I'm happy with it.
Well, good. I want to thank you. I think excellent interview, excellent advice to people, getting out there, making it happen. Go get your nose. I think that's everyone's task for today is go get your nose.
And be happy about it. Say, yes, I'm going to because it just makes you feel better. Yeah. Knowing you're just going to get your nose rather than that you're scared to death to get your yes.
Yep.
You're going to get a yes. Of course, you're going to get a yes because you're a problem solver. That's all it is. You just got to look at yourself as a problem solver.
It's totally awesome.
Answer to their prayers.
It is indeed.
Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for your candor. Thanks for your openness. Thanks for describing I think an exciting and unique niche that a lot of people are going to relate to and put in their toolbox for when it works. That's totally awesome.
Thanks for listening. Your next step is to visit gettractionpodcast.com. Happy wholesaling.